Hi, my name's John and welcome to my Metro 6R4 build, and if you haven't seen this before, it's a Porsche Boxster with a Metro shell style on top. And in this episode we're going to tackle a few more tricky issues, do a bit more bodywork, and then if you want you can have a look at my new daily driver. At least that's what I've told my wife it is anyway. Well, you're probably wondering about the status of this project, and I have to admit I've hit a bit of a stumbling block with it, and I wasn't expecting for that to happen. But basically, in about, I think it was August last year, I started filming a series on the roll cage for this, okay? And the problem with this is that the roll cage is a 35mm tube, okay? And it's not a standard roll cage size, so I can't go to somebody who bends roll cages and get them to bend it because they won't have the dies. But I did find somebody who could apparently bend this 35mm tube, and I was waiting for them to do it. But it subsequently worked out that they cannot bend this size tube. And so now what I've had to do is find somebody else, and I'm now on their waiting list to see if they can do it. But now it is a tricky job, even aside from the size of the pipe, so he's not 100% sure we can do it. But listen, I'm just going to keep trying, and somebody somewhere will be able to do it, so I won't be beat. But it's just a matter of time. So I think what I'm going to have to do is to just keep going with this project and do what I can do with it. And I think what I'm going to do in this episode is some bodywork, okay, and get this up to speed. I have the inner wheel arch liners ordered, and they should be here at the end of the month. So if I can get the outside bodywork pretty much done, that should be the bodywork done, more or less ready to paint. And maybe I paint the panels and leave them to the side. Now that certainly won't be in this episode, and I'll probably not show too much of the bodywork because I've already done a series on that. But we'll just check in at the end of the video and we'll see how far we've got, okay? But one thing that I do want to tackle in this video is the doors, and this was a problem that became apparent in the last episode. So basically this window winder is far too close to the dash, so we'll take this door off and we'll see what we can do with this. Well, as you can see, I've drawn a line on here to represent the position of the dashboard, and clearly this winder is not going to work where it is. So as a couple of people suggested in the last video, the easiest solution here would be to find a set of electric windows from a higher spec Metro, okay? Now they have like a motor that sits in here, and I think it has a worm gear that goes up to this. Now I haven't seen any for sale, but now I haven't looked very hard, but that probably would be a solution for sure, but it's currently not what I'm thinking of doing, okay? So one thing I was thinking is, now I ruled this out pretty quick, was that I could put the electric windows in from the Porsche, okay, and then it would plug in, because this here has like 8 wires to control it, rather than like 2 wires for an ordinary electric window mechanism. But basically once you see it in place, you realise that the Porsche window doesn't go up and down, it actually goes backwards, and so this is not going to work, and this motor is also much too wide to fit inside the door. Okay, so this got me thinking. Basically this here is the mechanism out of this door, okay, and it's really only, you know, a mechanism, a gear, and a bit of bar. So I was thinking, why can I not cut this and reposition this door or this winder somewhere else on this door panel, and see if I can get this to work with what I've got here. And then one thing struck me. So if you were to take the one off the other side, okay, and mount it like that, it then should work, okay, I think. This bolt hole will be the same. So basically, instead of it being up here, the winder will be down here, and that should clear the dash. Hopefully it'll not be too low to hit this point, but I think this should work. So I think I'm going to try this and see how we get on. Well, as you can see, I went ahead and screwed that winder mechanism in here, and I've used this one original bolt hole. And I've wound it up and down, and it does seem to work okay. It's going to clear the dash, and it should clear it down here. You can actually, I think, buy different winder handles for this. I think this is the same as what would be on a classic Mini, and you can get little aluminium ones, and I could possibly shorten one of them if I had to. But it does look like this is going to work. So I think what I need to do now is to make up a cardboard template in here and transfer that into steel, and I'll weld it in, and hopefully that should locate this mechanism. I thought I'd better check this before I go any further here. So I've tacked it in place, and I put the window in, and it seems to work just fine. So yeah, I don't really see a problem with that. So I'll probably just take it off here and finish off the welding, and that's it done. I'll do the other side. So on to the next issue. So basically this car has a problem where it knows that the Porsche doors are not fitted. So sometimes whenever I put the battery on, the alarm goes off, and sometimes it started, the alarm goes off, and sometimes it doesn't. And basically I can't really use it like that. So I'm going to have to figure this out. So I think on these cars you can remove the alarm system, but it's tied into the body control module. So once you do that, you lose things like wipers and indicators, and then you'd have to rewire them some other way, and that's not really an option for this. It'd be okay for a track day car, but not for this. So I'm going to have to fool it into thinking that the doors are still on the car. Now I think what I can do is I can take this latch here from the Porsche, okay, plug it in, stuff it up underneath the dash, and fool it into thinking that the doors are closed all the time, okay. Now the only issue with that is that I would have to have two separate keys, and I'd have to lock it and unlock it, and then I would have to hit the alarm button to arm it and disarm it separately, okay, which would be kind of annoying. So I want to see if I can try and get this central locking unit to work somehow in this Metro, okay. So one plan I was thinking of was that I was going to try and stuff this whole unit up inside this door and get rid of the Metro latch, but it's just absolutely massive, and I just don't think that's going to work. The levers that go to the door handles are all different. It just seems that it's going to be too difficult. So I think I'm going to have to keep the latch in here from the Metro. Okay, so I was looking at this latch out of the Porsche, right? And what I've realised is that it is the same as a Mark IV Golf unit. Okay, and see this hole here? I think that this is for the door pin on the Mark IV Golf. So basically whenever you lock it and unlock it, this goes up, and this is the wee pin that pokes up that you can see through the window. So I think that if I was to try and strip this down to its bare minimum, I might be able to use this as an actuator to try and move a lever to lock and unlock this door, okay. And this is the latch out of the other side of the Metro, okay. So this is the pin that goes up and down, but if you see here off this lever, there's two redundant spaces, okay. So I think that I could actually try and connect a bar between this and the Porsche latch, okay, if it's stripped down, and try and get to actuate this, and hopefully that'll lock it and unlock it and arm it and disarm it at the same time, okay. But it's really going to depend on how far I can strip this down and have it still work, but it would need to get an awful lot smaller. Before we get too carried away, I better check if this works. So I plugged the whole thing in, and this is what I've got it trimmed down to now. But if you lock it and unlock it, it does seem to work. So as long as this is strong enough, the principle behind it should work, okay. But it depends whether this is strong enough to operate it. But certainly the car seems a lot happier with that connected. But if all else fails, I just stuff this here up underneath the dash, and it'll be just fine. Well, even though I've got it trimmed down quite a lot, it's still probably just too big to fit in the way I'd hoped. I was sort of hoping I was going to go in like so. It does fit, but there's literally no room between the glass and it. But I think what I might be able to do is to turn it around this way, okay, and hopefully that's going to fit. It seems to fit a little bit better, and I can maybe clock it like that. And I think what I'm going to have to do now is go from this here up to this, okay. So I'll need to somehow try and attach this first, and then I'll need to make a bar that goes up to this and connects to that. Well, I made a little bracket here and welded it onto the door, and I also cut a little bracket here and I've glued it into the actual motor itself. Now there's only those two fixing points, but it does seem pretty solid, so it might do okay. I went over to Audio Advice and I got one of these, connections. I don't know what they're called, but basically these allow you to bolt the two bars together, and you use these in center locking kits. I have had a go at it here, but it does sort of work, okay. It does lock it and unlock it, but sometimes it's a bit inconsistent, so that the pin might go down but it might not be enough to lock it, or it might be up but it might not be up high enough to open it. And I'm thinking maybe that what might, either the motor isn't strong enough, or else because this here is turning in an arc and this is going up and down straight, the way that I've connected these might have is causing it maybe to bind, okay. So I think maybe if I was to weld a little flat bit of plate onto each of these with a nut and bolt through them, and the nut and bolt should allow the two things to have a bit of articulation. I'll try it anyway and see. It just might not be as tidy as this, but listen, may as well give it a go. So I welded a little tab onto each bar there, and I've used a nut and bolt to attach the two together. So it's probably slightly better than it was before, but it didn't fix the issue. So I was playing about with this pin here, and I just didn't like the way it felt. So I decided I was going to take everything apart here and have a look at it just before I give up on it, the idea. And it turns out that the outside door lock is seized completely solid, and that bar was then not moving enough, and that wasn't letting this latch move enough, and that wasn't letting this actuator move enough, and so basically that's what the problem was. So now it works perfectly. Now I do have an issue with this. Now see if you leave it in this unlocked position for probably about 30 seconds, it'll lock itself, all bets on accord. So I don't really know what the issue with that is. I think it's a Porsche related issue. I don't think it's anything to do with what we've done here. It could possibly be like an anti-hijack setting in it or something like that. But I think what I've done here is good enough as a proof of concept to move on with this, and hopefully this issue locks itself. You see, there you go. I'll be able to sort this out later on. Well, I'd taken yesterday off to go to the beach, and somehow I still found myself around here at 7:30 in the morning trying to figure this locking thing out because it was bugging me. So I actually did work out what was going on with it in the end. So basically, whenever you unlock the car, okay, it is sitting thinking, right, nobody has got into this car, right? And so the Porsche is looking for a signal from this door handle, okay, to say that somebody's got into it. And there's a little, let's see, there's a little micro switch here, and so you need to pull the door handle to trigger that micro switch. And unless it gets it, it'll basically lock itself within 30 seconds. So it is kind of a Porsche issue, but also kind of something that we have created here. So what I'm going to have to do is get this micro switch here off this, okay, and try and get it in here somewhere off a wee bracket or something, and see if we can get that issue resolved. So this actually worked out pretty simple. It really wasn't even worth filming. So up there's the micro switch off the door handle, and there was two little like pins on it, and all I had to do was drill 2 holes in this metro door latch in the right spot and push it in, and now whenever you open the door it triggers that micro switch. Okay, so that'll satisfy that. And there was also another micro switch on this door latch from I think this turns on the interior light. Not that I'm particularly worried about the interior light, but it might need this to be contacted or not contacted so that it allows it to lock or unlock depending whether the door's open or not. So I put it on anyway, and all I had to do was weld a bit of the old Porsche latch onto it here and put the original Porsche clip on it, and that's it in place. So I'll just need to lengthen this wire, but I think everything should work here. Well, it actually all worked. So I find these problem solving exercises a lot more enjoyable when they actually work out. So I'm pretty happy with that. This here, I'm not even going to bother showing you this. I'm going to keep one of these original mounting points for the door handle, and I'll move the other one. So it'll either be there or there. Okay. Now what I do want to change is this here, this door handler opener, whatever it's called. Basically because it looks too much like in a metro. And I want to put one of these in it, which is basically a Porsche door pull from an RS model, and even some of the more modern Porsches that reverted to using something like this. Okay, now it would be quite easy to mount it in this direction, okay, and so I could pull this forward, and that would open the door, but they're not meant to sit like that, they're meant to sit up down. Okay, so basically you're meant to pull this cord out, or the strap out, and it needs to open the door. So I'm going to need to change the angle that this is pulling in, okay, and what I'll need to use for this is a thing called a bell crank. Okay, so basically it's kind of like this here on the latch, where you pull it in one direction, okay, and it changes the direction that it's pulling in, okay. So I think what I'm going to need to do here is get rid of all this here, strip this down, make a plate for the back of this, and then start building off it. Well, that's the first part of this made up. So I've just taken a flat bit of plate and I've bent this little tab up on the back, and I put the little plastic insert. Now I've changed the orientation of this around because it was normally this way, up down, because that was to allow for the pivot of the plastic handle. But because we're going to be pivoting in a different direction, this needs to be able to go slightly up and down. So I've changed that around, okay. So we'll need to pick a pivot point, and it'll be somewhere like here, okay. And I need to make a crank up. Now it doesn't have to be this shape, it really doesn't matter about the shape of it. And let's say this is the pivot point. So whenever I pull down on it here, right, that's going to rotate, okay, and that'll pull the rod out, okay. But it could very easily be that way around. And if this was a pivot point, I could pull it down from this point and it would be the same thing, okay. So it's really just the distance between the pivot point and the rod, and the pivot point and the line that the pull cord will act through, okay. So I haven't been able to make it so that you're able to pull the cord out the way, because there's not enough depth in this door, so it's going to have to be so you pull it down. But I might be able to change something about it later on to maybe get that action that I want. So this is what I came up with. Truth be told, I actually folded this the wrong way, which actually happens quite a lot. But this will do for the other side, and this is how the passenger side looks. So hopefully this makes sense now. So whenever you pull down on it, it opens the door. Now it is quite stiff. I think possibly the spring might be a little bit too tight, so I might need to cut a little bit off it or get a different spring, but I'll worry about that later. It's a fine detail. I'll also need to put a plastic washer between this plate and this plate, and once I get it all set up, I'll need to tighten up the nut and bolt here and tack weld the nut so it doesn't come loose, okay. But what I want to try and do here is see if I can have more of an outwards pull rather than a downwards pull. So what I'm going to try and do is make like a little roller setup for this. So I don't have much to work with here, but I've got this bolt, okay, and I want to try and see if I can make something that goes between here and here over the top of this, right. And then I've got this bit of tube, and this is quite a nice fit around the outside of that shank of that bolt. So I'm going to try and cut a little bit of it and use it as a roller. So hopefully whenever I pull it down, it will rotate around it. Well, we're definitely getting there. I put that little roller in, as you can see, and it is working just the way you'd want it to, okay. And I loosened the spring, or took a bit off the spring, and it's a wee bit easier to pull. The only thing is, I'm not sure that this roller is actually helping at all, because it's not the full length. It's actually sort of eating into the bit of strap. So I think I'm maybe going to cut this off, get rid of the sleeve, and I don't think there's going to be much friction on it, and it might just work without it and be a bit more simple. Well, I've actually spent quite a bit of time in this, but I finally got it where I wanted. So I did try this without a roller, but it didn't work because there was too much friction on it. So what I've ended up doing is making this bar longer, making a longer roller, okay, and that goes on either side of the strap, and now it works really very well, okay, and you can pull it away from the door and it works, okay. Another thing that did help as well was I moved this point here closer to the pivot, and I also moved this one further away from the pivot, and what that's done is give me a mechanical advantage. And so while I have to move this strap further, I have to use less force to get the same amount of movement here. So now that I've got this figured out, doing the other side should be a lot easier. Well, just to give you an idea how it's going to look, I made up a door card there out of a bit of hardboard, and I just sprayed it with black aerosol. Now obviously it's going to be trimmed with black leather whenever it's finished, but yeah, that's pretty much what it's going to look like. And I might add on a few details, like maybe a map pocket down here, and maybe a map reading light up here, but for now I'm pretty happy with it, and it's pretty much kind of like what it would be in an early 911, so there you go. One thing that bothers me about this project is essentially every time I come into the garage, to me it more or less looks exactly the same, and so I think what I need to do is try and get the bodywork further along and maybe into coat of primer, okay. So I've already done the bodywork on the back quarter panels and the door boxes. So I think now I'm maybe going to tackle the wings and the tailgate and get them knocked off the list, and then we'd be pretty in a good situation. We wouldn't have too much left to do. So that's what I'm going to tackle now. But just before I do that, I want to show you something. So see here, if you notice, see there's like a chipped mark, okay? And what this is something that's very, very common in fiberglass, okay? So basically whenever somebody's pulled this out of the mould, there's been defects in it, and they've fixed them with a bit of Isopon, and then they've sprayed the area with a bit of white aerosol. And as I say, it's very common to see this, so I'm not alarmed to see it, but see it the way it chips off. Basically, if you see this, you need to make sure you get all of it off before you put anything over the top of it. I seen somebody do this one time, and now I do it occasionally. So whenever I've finished my fiberglass repair, what I've actually done here is I've put a coat of fiberglass resin over the top of it just to seal the surface of all the strands. So now I'll give this a quick rub down and fill over it. And I have no idea if it really makes any difference, but it seems like good practice, so that's what I'll do. Well, that's about as much bodywork as I'm going to put into this video because it's not that interesting. But that's the tailgate done. We've got the gap pretty much sorted here. The quarter panels were done from before. The door boxes were done before. And now I've got the two wings done, and these came in quite well. You probably thought I was putting quite a lot of filler in this, but as you can see, once it's rubbed off, you've really got very little left on it. And these white high spots show that basically without this skim, you know, this panel just wouldn't be straight, so it is quite necessary. So I've really only got the bonnet and the front bumper left to do, so I'm going to continue on with them this week, and then we'll move on to the next stage for these panels, but that's going to be in another video. But now for something completely different. Well, you're probably wondering why we're stood here looking at this Mark II escort of mine, and I did say in an earlier episode, I think it was maybe the second episode on the Metro, that it would give you a better look around it. And the fact of the matter is I've actually sold it, so you may not get to see it again, and I probably won't even get to see it again as it's going kind of far away. So just a quick look at it here. Now this here has a 2-litre Z-Tech out of probably a Mondeo or a Focus or something, and it was rebuilt by a guy called Patent Performance to an oval race spec, which is basically kind of a standard engine, but it's got higher compression, and there's some different tolerances tightened up on it, and it's got lightweight flywheel. It's also got a 32-36 downdraft Weber, which is the one they use in that race series, so that's why I've kept it. So it should have about 170 brake horsepower, so it does go really, really well. Certainly I don't think you would need more power in an Escort. It's got one of these BDA look rocker covers, okay, which is basically an old type engine, is called a BDA, and this isn't the retro Ford one. This is actually made by a guy in Ireland, and I don't think he actually makes them anymore, but I actually bought this second hand, and it had never been used, and I suspect the reason why the guy had sold it to me is it didn't actually fit the engine. So after doing a bit of grinding to the inside of it, I did get it to work, and what I do like about it is I think it's slightly better shaped than the retro Ford one, like a wee bit more authentic looking, but you can make your own mind up with that, but it's certainly a rare piece. This airbox is very similar to what would be on a Mark I Mexico or a Mark II RS 1800, which is basically what this is kind of a replica of. Now these are maybe 500-600 or maybe even more for one of these airboxes, but one day I was able to buy this lid for 90, and I was then made this base for it, and this is a bit of exhaust tube, and I flared this out, and it's got a bit of exhaust rubber here, and some holes drilled underneath it here for some extra air, so it does work well, and it certainly wasn't the big ticket price that they normally are. This here cam belt cover is actually made out of steel. Okay, so I folded this up, I folded these ribs up, welded these on, filled them in, and painted it with the texturized bumper paint that you would have seen in the episode of the Metro Dash. Okay, so it does look like plastic. This distributor is actually empty, and it's only bolted to the side of the engine to make it look like an older engine, so it doesn't actually do anything, and neither does the coil, because it does run an ECU. It's got a right hand drive exhaust manifold, which basically shouldn't fit, but we were able to get it in beside this left hand drive brake tower. So basically the goal here was to make it look like kind of a authentic 70s sort of hot escort. So that's why I've left all the brake pipes and water bottle and things, just to make it look sort of more original. It's actually got an air suspension kit, and you can drive it a bit lower than this, but this is probably normal drive height. And what I like about it is you can lift it up to clear speed bumps, or if you need to get a jack in underneath it, and you don't end up wrecking the chassis legs or anything like that. So it has been very successful in that respect. So you know, I'm pretty pleased that I've done that with it. It's got this is actually a gauge out of a lorry air brake system, and I use this for the air suspension. And what I like about it is it's sort of period correct looking. It's got a set of these shield type bucket seats. Now these are replicas, but they're very similar to what you could have got as an option in these cars, and it's quite a nice place to be if you like that sort of thing. But I suppose if you're not into escorts, well, you'll probably not get it. But yeah, I would have to say, in my opinion, it is a really nice car. I've had it now, I think it's about 5 years now, but the only issue with it is that there's not really anything I would change about it, and so there's not really anything more I can do with it. And whenever the guy messaged me and asked me if I would sell it, basically came to a price, and you know, listen, it's just time for it to go, and I think I can just use the money and put that into the Metro and a few other things, and basically have more fun building things than actually owning them or driving them. So basically that's it. That's about as much as you'll see of it. So I don't actually have a normal everyday car as most people would. Basically, if I wasn't driving this, I'd be driving a 1977 two-door Range Rover, which is kind of practical but also not that practical. And so I decided that what I was going to have to do is go out and get myself a nice plain everyday car that kind of went under the radar and was easy to run, like a diesel Golf or something. But we'll see how that went. Well, what do you think? So yeah, this is probably about as sensible as it gets around here. Now, in my defence, I do happen to believe that this is probably about the best era of Mercedes ever made, and if you were prepared to look after it, you could probably make this car outlast you. The other reason that I bought it is that I happen to have a whole load of parts and pieces laying around, and they're sitting in an area that really needs to be cleared, and hopefully some of them can find their way onto this, and that's going to solve my problem there. I've bought something for this, which you're going to see at the end of the video, which hopefully makes this whole thing make complete sense as a daily driver, and it's quite hopefully special. It's really quite clean except for the front wheel arch here, but the back wheel arches are rock solid, okay, and it's solid underneath. But these wheel arches don't actually matter, because what I'm going to do is cut these out and turn this into a Mercedes Cosworth Evolution 1 replica, which is not to be confused with the Evolution 2, which is a little bit wilder. This is a little bit more subtle, okay. Those cars had, as far as I'm aware, a height adjustable suspension from the factory, which I'm going to try and replicate in this. You probably think you won't like that, but the way I'm going to do it, hopefully you will. It's got a 2.6 straight six engine, which is really quite important to us. It has only done 100,000 miles, which for one of these is next to nothing. I actually think it's been off the road for a long time. In fact, I know it's been off the road for a long time. But this isn't going to be a project like the Metro 6R4. Basically, the plan for this is I'm going to get it on the road as soon as I can. I'm going to drive it, and then I'm going to do a bit more to it, drive it for a while, and do another bit to it. So it probably won't be done for another year. So if it was finished next summer, it would be ideal. And probably the best thing about this car is actually the engine on it. but I bought it to take the engine out of it. We'll have you down in the corner of the yard here, and hopefully what I'm going to show you is going to make this project make sense and why the man maths works out, which basically means I fooled myself into thinking that this is going to be a cheap project, and the reality is it's going to be anything but. So I actually have another Mercedes here, and this is a car that I bought probably about 20 years ago now, and this would have been my everyday car at the time. Fitted hydraulic suspension to it. It has hub adapters on, so it takes the Porsche wheels that you'd actually see on the Metro 6R4, and it actually has a full 100 square, fully playable snakes and ladders board, airbrushed onto the roof. Now, a friend of mine done this at the time, but sadly she's no longer with us, but we do still have the artwork here, so at least that's something. So this car actually was probably my favourite car ever to drive, okay, and it actually has the M104 24 valve straight 6 petrol, okay. So this is very similar to the engine that would be in the C36 AMG. In fact, well, it's the same layout and stuff, but this is a 3.2 rather than the 3.6. I think it's got a 220 brake horsepower, 224, something like that, and it's a really good going thing, okay. But at the time it had an oil leak, okay, and what I decided to do was to take it to a mechanic and get the oil leak fixed, okay. And what ended up happening was whenever I got back it wasn't run right, and I think what had happened is the timing wasn't set right, but it went to another mechanic to get fixed, and another one, and then another one. I think it was at 3 mechanics after that, and eventually I got it back probably about 7 years later, not running, okay, and we couldn't work out what was wrong with it, or nobody else could work out what was wrong with it. So at that time somebody that I knew gave me this here, okay, and this is probably about 10 years ago now, and if you know what this means, you probably know, but we'll get on to that in a minute. So the plan was that what I was actually going to do was take the engine out of this car and put it into this one and make this into a runner again, okay, because this car is very rotten. And I actually drove this home, but I wasn't very impressed with it at the time. Now it was obviously free, so you know, I'm not complaining, but whenever I looked into it, every single electric component in this car is different to this one. This is one year and year, but everything is different, okay. So I was going to have to take the entire wiring loom out of this car and every component, and in the meantime a friend of mine came around and we'd done a bit of diagnosis work on this here, and it turned out that we found out that the crank position sensor was away, and the reason nobody could find it, the problem was because somebody had replaced the wire from the ECU down to the crank position sensor, and it has a coaxial cable, and then one strand of the outside cable locked in with the coil, or with the core in the middle, so it wasn't getting the right signal. So we ended up taking parts off this car here, okay, and managed to get this running, and then I drove this for another long time afterwards. But subsequently I ended up putting an AMG battery, AGM battery, sorry, into this at one point, and it started up and then it did not start, and it has never run since. So I've done something electrical to this car, and I'm not quite sure what. Now I am quite confident in the engine because I've drove it you know, before, and I know that it's good, and the shell is actually not that bad. It needs a couple of bits of welding, but not an awful lot for one of these. So at the minute I would sort of be not that keen on breaking this car for the engine, but listen, if I have to I will. You know, if I can't get it running, this would definitely run on a standalone ECU, which is what you'd probably do if you're putting in another car anyway. And you can put throttle body injection on it. You can put triple Webers on it. There's actually a kit for that, and you can actually buy a turbo kit as well. There's a guy, I think he's got one of these running at 1,000 brake horsepower. Now I wouldn't be planning for anything like that there, but 400, something like that would be nice. But anyway, on to this car. Okay, so this car is probably the most rotten Mercedes at the time, and bear in mind I got this probably about 10 years ago, and it probably wasn't really even worth its weight in rust at the time, because nobody really thought anything about these engines over here. Now there would be a big deal in Scandinavia and places like that there, but more recently this has become quite a desirable engine, because what you can do here is take the electronically controlled fuel pump that's in here off it and replace it with a mechanical fuel pump from an earlier car, and add a big turbo, bigger elements in the pump, and basically make one of these produce 300, 400, 500, 600 horsepower, depending what setup you have on it. Okay, so this might be a good option for this new project, okay? But what I really need to do is to try and get this running again and see if it's running okay, because there was some of the reasons why I wasn't interested in putting it in at the time was that if you look back here, there's some bolts missing on the inlet manifold, and I don't know why they were not there. I think just because they're missing at one end, I think somebody needed some bolts one day and this is where they found them. At least that's the hope. Okay, but it doesn't look like they tried to take the manifold off. I don't know why the bolts are only off one end. Okay, and also down here, one of these exhaust studs is actually bent, and the nut is still on it now, but there's a gap on one side, so clearly somebody has had this exhaust manifold off, and I don't know whether they've had the head off it or anything like that. So basically a bit of investigation work is going to need to go on here, and we need to see if we can get this running first. I'm sat inside this turquoise Mercedes here, as you can probably tell by the interior door panels. And I was around here yesterday, and it was a Sunday, and I thought I'll do a few things, get myself sorted out for the week here. And what I planned to do is I was going to take the crank position sensor out of this turquoise Mercedes and put it in the diesel car, because that's how we got this turquoise one running the last time. We basically took the crank position sensor out of the diesel one, put it into this, sorted out of the wiring, and then this car started. Okay, so I now need a crank position sensor for the diesel one. So I thought, since this is unlikely to run, because I already looked at it 5 years ago, whenever it stopped the last time, I thought I'll save myself 30 quid plus VAT, and I'll just take a crank position sensor out of this. So I thought, while I'm here, I'll have another look at it just before I take it out, because I don't know if we could bother land underneath it. So what I did is I went on the internet and I found that the big problem with these is a K40 relay, okay, and it's a series of 5 relays inside a box. Now I think on earlier cars, maybe the previous model, it was called an OVP relay, okay, and it was a single relay. Now the OVP stands for over voltage protection, right? So I'm pretty sure what I've done by putting the AGM battery in it was blown the K40 relay, okay, and basically once it goes you have to replace it, and there's not a lot of information online about fixing anything about it. Basically you buy one and you try it. So anyway, I looked on the internet a bit more, and because this car is very early, it seems to share an awful lot in common with the earlier model. So this is a W210 model. The previous model with the square headlights would have been a W124, okay, but this car has the 4-speed gearbox, it is the blade key, and it has the 3.2 straight 6 that the W124 would have, whereas most E320s came with a V6. Okay, so so I found a pinout for that K40 relay for the earlier car, and I was able to see that certain pins should have 12 volts and some of them didn't, and the main one that I'd seen that didn't have a 12 volt was the feed for the ECU. Okay, so basically I was so sure this wasn't going to work that I didn't even bother filming it. So I took a wire from the 12 volt and I put it into the top of the pin, and now we have a running Mercedes. So I kind of wish I'd figured that out maybe about 5 years ago, but that's the way it goes. So I'll show you what I've done here. So inside this box here is the 5 relays, and basically I've just taken a 12 volt feed from where the battery goes, stuffed it in the top, and it started. Okay. And I decided to give it a wash and clean it up, and it doesn't actually look too bad, although there's no getting away from the fact it is very, very turquoise. And I think maybe my tastes might have changed, but this is pretty cool at the time. Whether keep it turquoise is another thing. Now it does have a bit of rust down in this jacking point area, and the same on the other side, and there's various bits around the car, but it's not the worst for one of these. And cleaned it up inside, and the interiors were very well in these, especially for having, I think it's got 190,000 miles. Now it does pose a problem though, this, because this was an option for an engine for the other car, okay, and now that this runs, I'm not sure that I want to break it, although I know it's not worth a lot of money. I don't really want to break it. It does also have a hydraulic suspension kit in it, okay, so this is how you would lift it up and down, and the plan was I was going to take it out of this car and use it in the other project. So and now I'm going to need to find another hydraulic kit. I do think I've got a hydraulic pump somewhere. In fact, I think I've about 3 of them, but I probably have to mix and match them together to make one decent one. But I don't have a valve block, and the valve blocks are, I don't know, they're probably 500 quid or more now. So I'm going to have to find one of them. Realistically, I'm probably going to have to buy it new. So they've got that issue as well. So basically, I now have a turquoise Mercedes that I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do with. But I'll probably end up putting it back on the road because it was a very nice driving car. But the problem is now that I need to find an engine for this other car. So basically, I need to hope that this diesel engine is going to start. Do you remember I said this car was rusty? Well, it is certainly not. And I guess this is probably why I ended up with this car, because it wouldn't really have been a lot of use to anybody else at the time. So I did watch the last clip back, and it probably seemed like it was a bit ungrateful for this car at the time, but that is certainly not the case, because without this being here, I wouldn't have been able to work out what was wrong with the other car, and wouldn't be able to fix it. And over the years, I've taken plenty of stuff off this to keep the other car going. Like, I see the wiper motor's missing, and I know various bits of suspension have came off it. But the fact of the matter is that whenever I got this, it wasn't running very well, and it didn't have a lot of power, and I couldn't work out whether somebody had removed bolts trying to fix a problem, or whether the removed bolts are the reason why it has no power. But since we got the other car going, this car got forgot about, and I didn't need it, so it's just sat here. But this OM606 engine is pretty impressive, and if you want after this, you can go and look at some videos on YouTube of it, but you'll be surprised what these are capable of. But I know for a fact it's not going to start because it has no starter in it, and we need to put a new crankshaft position sensor, but it's definitely not seized because I did check that. But we'll stick these in and see if we can get it to turn over. Sorry, it's a bit windy out here today, but I did get that crank position sensor in on the starter motor, and this is the setup that I've got going on here to charge it. Now, given the condition of this, I have no real belief that it's going to start, but you know, it's been sitting outside this length of time, but I do know that it recognises the key because I tried this the other day. But we'll give it a go here. So let's let it warm up a bit, and wait for that light to go out. Yeah, it's not starting. It was looking like the starter was bad there, so I took it out and tried it on the ground, and it worked, and put it back in, and now it's actually clicking. So I think the problem was a bad connection at the starter, and now I've got a better battery in it, so hopefully it's going to turn over. It did click, so now with a better battery, hopefully it's going to turn over. So let's see. Wait for this heater light to go out. Trying anyway. Right, I think I'll maybe heat it again here. I can't imagine there's too many glow plugs working on it. Oh, nearly there. Try it again here now. It takes a long time for this light to go out. Yeah, I think I'll maybe disconnect the battery and reconnect it and try again. For some reason the glow plug light's not coming on now, so I'll give us a bit of this stuff here, Liz, but I'm sure this is an absolutely terrible thing to be doing here, but I'll give it a go anyway. Nearly, we're getting it. Give it a bit more. Yeah. Yeah, I don't think it's getting fuel. It seems to be starting up and down. I really like the macro house, but I think that might be error in the line somewhere. I think I might can do that. But I think the next... Well, it's a nice evening, so I came around and I'm going to try and have another go at getting this running right. So what I've done since is I've replaced some of the water pipes that I've cut off it over the years. I basically needed some hose at some point, and this is where I found it. And it's got a nice blade screw here, so hopefully it's full of water now, and I'm going to try and start it again. Hopefully the heater plugs are going to work okay this time, with resetting them maybe from the battery being off, but we'll have to see. And the plan is I'm going to try and run it up a temperature and see that it's got no head gasket issues or heating over. And one thing I want to check is that I want to try and run it for a while. I noticed whenever I was trying to turn it over, it had like a gallop, so whenever I was turning it over, the cranking wasn't even, so it's going yum 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 yum. And I think that basically means that one of the cylinders has a low compression, but it could be because maybe a ring had been stuck in one of the pistons, but hopefully that's going to come out of it. It could also maybe be rust on some of the valves from sitting, but we'll need to run it a while and see what happens. It doesn't actually seem to be running too bad now. It's a little bit knocky, there's a little bit of a tick at the front of it, but I know the diesels are generally like that, and some of them do have a bit of a knock in them. Could be there's a bit of air still in it. I don't know, do they have hydraulic tablets? Maybe, I don't know. I need to look into that, but the more it runs the better it seems to get, so I think I'll just let it sit and run here. And the temperature gauge doesn't seem to be working, but listen, you're going to know if it's overheating because it starts pressurizing pipes and all sorts of things, so we'll keep an eye on it here and see how it does. Well, as you can see, I've been on eBay here and I've got myself a set of these Mercedes Cosworth Evolution 1 wheels in 16-inch. Now, these are more than likely off a Mercedes SL, but they're the same wheels that they use on those Evolution cars. Now, I've been looking at that diesel engine and I'm pretty happy with it mechanically. Every time I start it now, the compression's even, there's no knocks or rattles out of it that I wouldn't expect here, so I'm pretty happy to move forward with it. Now, one thing that I did notice about it was that the alternator's bad, and so the longer you run it, the battery seems to die and it seems to start running rough, and I think this is because it's getting bad signals all around the place, and that is possibly maybe what I was experiencing all those years ago with it. Now, a man of my electronic experience, or lack of, should probably be going out and buying an upgraded mechanical fuel pump and sticking it onto the side of this engine, and there'd be no wiring and it would run perfectly, okay, but that's not what I'm going to do. So I went out and I've got myself this, which is a standalone ECU, and I have to make a wiring loom up to go between this and the engine, but what that's going to do is allow me to keep that electronic fuel pump, and later on I'll be able to upgrade it for a larger item with a larger turbo and a different manifold and remap it so that I can push hopefully 400 or 450 brake horsepower out of it. But that's not the real reason why I picked this, because what I need this is so that I can get this to talk to a gearbox controller called the TCU, and I need the TCU so that I can get it to talk to this, which is BMW ZF 8HP 70 gearbox out of a 330D BMW. I think it's a 2019 gearbox. Okay, so this is an 8-speed automatic, and probably wouldn't be that excited about an automatic, but these are something else. So what I'll be able to do is basically drive this every day as an 8-speed automatic car, but also I'll be able to put a map in it so that I can use it as a sequential gearbox, and people are actually using these in drifting now. And if you get the right gearbox controller, you can actually fit it with what's called a virtual clutch, so you can give it a clutch and have a manual experience out of it. So basically this gearbox does everything, and this here is what's going to make this the perfect daily driver, hopefully. So basically what we're going to have here is a Mercedes 190E with an OM606 engine with 450 brake horsepower, 8-speed automatic sequential gearbox, Cosworth Evolution 1 body kit, and hydraulic height adjustable suspension. And if that's not worth subscribing for, I don't know what is, but you can let me know in the comments what you think. See you later. Bye.